How to maintain long-lasting feelings of love. The complexity of human feelings has always fascinated psychologists and lovers. Love is one of the most intense emotions, but its durability is far from guaranteed. To preserve our love relationship, it is therefore essential to know how to maintain the feelings of love. The first piece of advice is to pay attention to appearance. Although it may seem superficial, the physical appearance of each person is one of the criteria on which the first impression is based. This has nothing to do with a form of seduction or manipulation, but rather with a form of respect for oneself and one's partner. However, this should not be an end in itself, because once in a love relationship, physical appearance is not everything. The second piece of advice is to maintain consistency in your behavior. It is a question of rhythm and regularity. Daily actions reflect more than a simple gesture of affection or care. They demonstrate the existence of a genuine desire to get closer to the other person in the long term. Again, it is not a matter of calculation or strategy, but rather of being yourself and investing yourself naturally. The third piece of advice is not to put unnecessary pressure on yourself. Feelings of love are deep emotions, which vary according to circumstances and individuals. It is therefore essential not to put pressure on yourself to maintain them or to cultivate them artificially. It is above all a matter of letting yourself be guided by your feelings, without forgetting to listen to the other person. In short, to maintain lasting feelings of love, it is essential to pay attention to yourself and to the other person, without forcing things. Like all human emotions, feelings of love are subject to a certain volatility, but this should not dissuade us from cultivating and maintaining them as best we can.
How to overcome shyness in seduction. In our society, seduction holds an important place. Whether it is to find love or to maintain a relationship, knowing how to seduce is an essential skill. However, not everyone has this natural ease. Some people are shy and find it difficult to express themselves when it comes to seduction. However, a good seduction is based on simple elements that can be worked on. The smile, the look and a single compliment are the basic ingredients to set the tone of a conversation. Sometimes a single wink or a small smile is enough to get the message across. However, it is not always enough. To overcome this shyness, you must first learn to know and accept yourself. It is important to feel good about yourself and to work on your self-confidence. Relaxation and breathing techniques can also help you relax and better manage your emotions. Next, it is important to work on communication. Learning to listen to the other person and ask the right questions can facilitate dialogue and help create a connection. It's not about following a script, but rather staying authentic and adapting to the other person. Finally, it's important not to get discouraged. Anyone can learn to date and it can take time. You should not be afraid of failures and rejections. It is normal and it is part of the learning process. It is important to keep a positive attitude and to persevere. In short, seduction can be learned and there is no magic recipe. You must first of all work on yourself, your self-confidence and your communication. And above all, not to be afraid to take risks. How to please without damaging your integrity? I discuss how to please your fellow man while respecting your own integrity. According to the law of love, it is important to try to please in the presence of others, but it is also important to know how to say stop in order to balance the synchronicity and respect one's personal integrity. In a video, love expert Jean-Luc explains the details of this process. It is important to be aware that pleasing someone should not be done at the expense of oneself, but rather in harmony with one's own being. The advice of the Amourologist allows you to find this balance and to please others while honoring your own values and limits. In short, pleasing others should not be an action that harms one's integrity and dignity, but rather a way of being that respects others and oneself. Following the advice of love expert Jean-Luc allows you to please in an authentic and sincere manner while being true to yourself.
How to recognize a quality love relationship. Recognizing a quality love relationship can be difficult when one lacks self-confidence or when one has not been educated about love relationships. Coach Michelle Time to Love proposes an approach based on her school of love to help people become aware of and take responsibility for their relationships. The important thing is to prepare yourself before getting into a relationship by doing some introspection. It's about taking the time to reflect on the love education received unconsciously from our parents and to ask ourselves if it is adapted to our needs and desires. By becoming aware of our limitations and strengths, we are able to make a more informed choice for ourselves. This involves stepping out of our reactions into creation and thus into a deeper understanding of the other. In short, to recognize a quality love relationship, it is essential to become aware of the love we have for ourselves and to ask ourselves the right questions so that our love relationship is fulfilling and healthy. It is essential to stop undergoing the love life to take our destiny in hand and live our love life in a serene way.
How to transcend human love into divine love, according to Peter Deunov. Peter Deunov was the spiritual teacher of Albert Einstein. He was a Bulgarian teacher, writer and musician who lived in the early 20th century. He left behind a spiritual legacy that has influenced millions of people around the world. In one of his most profound teachings, Peter Deunov explains how to transcend human love into divine love. Human love is often conditioned by the ego and desires possession, security and comfort. However, divine love is universal, unconditional and unlimited. It is a love that transcends all personal attachments and, according to Peter Deunov, leads to union with the universe and with God Himself. To achieve this divine love, we must begin by loving ourselves. This means that we must accept and honor our deepest essence. We must embrace who we really are, without judgment or condition. Then we can extend this love to all that surrounds us, beginning with our family, our friends, our community and ultimately all of humanity. By practicing this universal love, we can break through the barriers of ego and ignorance to reach a higher state of consciousness. It is a love that carries wisdom, compassion and gratitude, which can lift our spirit and allow us to find the meaning of life. In conclusion, Peter Deunov's teaching on the transcendence of human love into divine love is one of the most profound and influential in the field of Amourology. He reminds us that love is the pillar of human existence and that it is the path to higher spirituality.
How can we use our emotional intelligence to better manage risk and make bold decisions? In this text, the author, Christoph Haag, discusses the topic of emotional intelligence and its impact on our ability to take risks and make bold decisions. He explains how our body and emotions synchronize with those of the person we are interacting with in only 21 thousandths of a second. It shows how our emotions influence our behavior, our thinking and our choices. The author encourages us to develop our emotional intelligence to better manage risks and make the right decisions. He explains that this involves learning to listen to and understand our emotions, to accept them and to use them as a source of information to make informed decisions. Christoph Haag also explains the importance of intuition in decision-making. According to him, intuition is a form of emotional intelligence that can be developed and used to make bold and effective decisions. In sum, the article shows the importance of emotional intelligence in decision-making and risk management, and encourages readers to develop this skill to achieve their personal and professional goals.
Human love and divine love, a subtle but important nuance. I discuss the distinction between human love, which is often associated with affection and feelings, and divine love, which is described as simply being present without condition. The author points out that affection can have connotations, while divine love is free of judgment or conditions. This subtle nuance is important because it can inform how we love and accept others. In short, human love is tied to the emotions and perception of the loved one, while divine love is universal and unconditional. By understanding this difference, we may be able to approach a purer and more selfless form of love.
Imagination and myths in the understanding of history. It is not uncommon for the understanding of history to be based on the imagination and the projection of our own fantasies on the facts of the past. Documentaries and historical works are often tainted with these interpretations, sometimes far from reality. Thus, in many documentaries, man is often presented as a polygamous being, whereas the most recent scientific theories seem to lean rather in favor of monogamy. However, it is difficult to know with certainty what the emotional behavior of men and women was throughout the centuries. Some archaeological discoveries can nevertheless give us clues about these behaviors. Period gifts found on excavation sites may suggest effective behavior between individuals, even if this remains difficult to prove. In sum, imagination plays an important role in understanding history, but it is essential to distinguish real facts from fantastical interpretations. Archaeological discoveries and scientific research can help shed light on certain aspects of our past, but there are still many mysteries to be unraveled.
Important criteria to consider in a relationship. In a relationship, it is crucial to take into account certain criteria to ensure healthy communication and mutual respect. Here are some of these criteria. 1. Anger towards criticism. It is important to be able to accept constructive criticism without responding with anger or aggression. It is also essential to be able to criticize without being dismissive or hurtful. 2. Respect for privacy and secret garden. Everyone has the right to their own personal space and must have the freedom to share what they want and not share what they don't want. 3. Do not put each other down because of an excessive need for security. A relationship must be based on trust and mutual esteem. If one of the partners suffers from a lack of self-confidence, it can affect the relationship in a negative way. 4. Avoid emotional blackmail with ultimatums. It is important to communicate in an open and honest way, without trying to manipulate or control the other. 5. Avoid radio silence and unspoken words. Communication is the key to a healthy and lasting relationship. It is therefore important to be open and honest with your partner and to talk about anything that may be a problem. By taking these important criteria into account, a relationship can be more fulfilling and respectful for both partners.
In Search of True Love. In this introspective text, the author expresses his desire to love everything and everyone without condition or judgment. He aspires to love with constancy even in difficult moments, to love without reason, without expecting an answer. Love should be the guide of his life, his way of being, and even his epitaph. However, the author wonders if he really knows love or if he is simply limited by the reflections he perceives through his experiences. He expresses his desire to go to meet it, to open the doors in him to let himself be carried away, disturbed, taught, transformed by love until eternity. The author admits his ignorance of love, but he feels something in him that already knows it. It is a poetic text that invites the reader to reflect on love, the quest for self and truth.
Information about the video L'Empreinte de l'amour by Jean-Luc de Wachter. This text displays information about the video L'Empreinte de l'amour by Jean-Luc de Wachter. There is an indication that this song is taken from an album. The YouTube channel where the album can be found is also mentioned. Below the sequence of information about the video, there is a space reserved for other details that can be deployed by the user. Ultimately, there are no comments for this video.
Inner beauty and kindness. We often hear that inner beauty is linked to the virtue of kindness. This emotional beauty radiates through the heart and is felt in the eyes, allowing us to see the beauty of things in return. Omra Mikhail Ivanov, a renowned spiritual master, has devoted much of his work to explaining this idea. For Ivanov, inner beauty is not only related to moral virtues, but also to spiritual qualities. He says that when we cultivate these qualities, we become more aware of the beauty around us, and are able to see it in everything. We are no longer blinded by appearances and we see the very substance of things. Kindness, according to Ivanov, is not only an intrinsic quality, but also a way to connect people to each other. By being kind, we can touch the hearts of others and allow them to feel loved and appreciated. This can create stronger and more lasting bonds between people. Ultimately, inner beauty and kindness are invaluable qualities that we can cultivate in ourselves and others. By practicing them, we can create a positive atmosphere conducive to personal and spiritual growth. As Ivanov said, man's inner beauty is a treasure to be preserved and cultivated.
Inner harmony leads to conscious love. When we are at peace with ourselves, our mind, body and soul are balanced. This state of well-being vibrates through our being and allows us to automatically enter a state of loving awareness. We feel a certain fullness that leads us to a greater capacity to love and be loved. From a metaphysical point of view, we could speak of the marriage of the soul and the spirit through the heart. The soul is the essence of our being, our spiritual self, while the spirit is our intellect, our ability to think, understand and analyze the world around us. When these two entities are in harmony, the heart becomes the center of our emotional activity, creating a deep connection with other human beings. It is important to note that this state of conscious love is not dependent on the presence of a specific person in our lives. Rather, it is a state of mind and energy that vibrates within us and allows us to love everything around us, including ourselves. It is by cultivating this state of loving awareness that we can live a life filled with joy, compassion, and understanding. In short, inner harmony leads to conscious love. By finding this state of balance within ourselves, we can then create healthy and nourishing relationships with those around us and fully appreciate the beauty of life.
Inner reconciliation, a path to healing. To achieve reconciliation, it is important to be very introspective and to understand the inner wound of yin and yang. Unfortunately, finding the origin of this wound is often forgotten. In order to release the traumatic memory, it is necessary to take back control of one's life and take care of oneself, providing the necessary comfort. Indeed, reconciliation is a healing process that takes place in pairs. This means that even if we feel we are going through reconciliation alone, the other person is a key part of this process. In sum, inner reconciliation requires attention, patience and a strong will to heal to achieve reconciliation and finally heal our inner wounds. Join a circle of love to open your heart with Amourology.com. Amourology.com, a reference site for lovers and love seekers, organizes a love circle for meditation enthusiasts and sensitive hearts. Entitled Just Love, this meditation circle aims at offering a well-being atmosphere to the participants. This circle is organized every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m., on Google Meet. During this circle, participants will share their love for each other, and thus open up to the love within. The leeway for sharing love will be the time given to each person to open their heart. Each person will be invited in turn to express their love for the other members of the group. This group meditation will help participants to enter the spirit of love and maintain inner peace. To participate in this event, please register at Amourology.com. You will then receive event details and an invitation to join the Just Love Circle on Google Meet. So if you want to give and receive love, join this love circle for a journey filled with sensitivity and happiness.
Keeping the flame of love alive. Love is an energy that must be cultivated and nurtured to survive. That's why keeping the flame of love burning is crucial for a happy and lasting love. This flame represents the joy, passion, tenderness and deep connection between two people. Despite the external conditions that may play in favor of this love, it is above all the inner state of being that is the key. To keep the flame burning, we must first cultivate unconditional love. This means that you must learn to love yourself before loving another person. You must accept your weaknesses, be at peace with your emotions, and have a self-confidence that does not depend on others. Then, you must also learn to communicate with your partner in a healthy and constructive way. It is important to understand the needs of the other person, to speak with honesty and openness, and to listen without judgment. Finally, keeping the flame of love burning requires attention and time. It is important to continue to learn from each other, share quality time together, and create new memories that strengthen the connection. Keeping the flame of love burning is constant work, but it is the price to pay for a happy and lasting union. This is how that love continues to shine, even in the darker moments of life.
Kery James, the committed rapper who advocates love in his lyrics. Kery James is a rap artist committed to the defense of human rights, the fight against racism and social injustice. But beyond these themes, he also tackles more personal subjects like love and friendship. Through his music, he conveys a strong message of tolerance, empathy and benevolence towards others. In one of his famous lines, Kery James states, "Friendship is true love that requires neither equity nor reciprocity, and mainly the exclusivity that an emotional relationship requires." This sentence reflects his vision of friendship and love, namely that they must be pure, unselfish and free of any form of conditioning.
Through his lyrics, Kery James seeks to deconstruct society's stereotypes on these subjects. He encourages men to be vulnerable and express their feelings, whether in love or friendship. He emphasizes the importance of communication, mutual respect, and trust in these relationships. In short, Kery James is a complete artist who uses his music as a weapon to defend his beliefs and values. He is an example for many young people who recognize themselves in his lyrics and who are looking for a positive model to build their own lives.
Kindness, a formidable weapon. Kindness is often associated with weakness and an inability to face challenges. However, kindness can be a formidable weapon when used intelligently. In fact, kindness can be a way to resolve conflicts peacefully. Rather than confronting the other person violently, it is often more effective to remain calm and polite, even in the most tense moments. This helps to ease tensions and find solutions that satisfy both parties. But be careful, kindness should not be confused with weakness. It is perfectly possible to be kind while having great strength of character. Being kind does not mean being submissive or manipulative. On the contrary, kindness must be accompanied by great integrity and a strong will to defend one's convictions. Women are often praised for their intuition, which allows them to sense things with great acuity. This intuition can be a great help in determining the best way to be kind while maintaining integrity. In short, kindness is a virtue not to be underestimated. It can be used as a formidable weapon, as long as you know how to handle it with intelligence and firmness.
Krishnamurti and the Quest for Love in Solitude. Krishnamurti, a philosopher and spiritual teacher, had an insightful vision of human nature and its limitations. He believed that humanity today has not fully understood the meaning of love and solitude and their intimate connection. He points out that all human activities contribute to isolation and division, because they are based on fragmentary thinking. Fragmentary thinking is the result of our desire to see the world as a collection of parts rather than as a whole. This fragmentary approach creates conflict and division. Krishnamurti suggests that in order to break out of this fragmentation, we need to take a more comprehensive and holistic approach by focusing on total attention and direct perception rather than on divisions. Direct perception is an approach that allows us to see things without the filters imposed by the ego and the self. Furthermore, love and solitude are closely related. According to Krishnamurti, true love can only be found when we are alone, because only when we are alone can we be fully connected to our inner self and discover our true desires. Isolation allows us to connect with ourselves and thus find a better understanding of ourselves, which opens the door to true love and a more fulfilling life. In sum, Krishnamurti reminds us that love and solitude are complementary concepts that can help us transcend our fragmentary nature and reach a more complete understanding of life and ourselves.
Kunyaza, an exciting African erotic practice. In his film Sacred Water, Olivier Jourdan takes us on an emotional journey of discovery into one of the best-kept secrets of Rwandan culture, Kunyaza. This ancestral sexual practice, which literally translates as making it flow, is considered the art of giving and receiving the ultimate pleasure in eroticism in Africa. Kunyaza is a term that encompasses a technique, philosophy and local cultural tradition that practitioners believe can help create deep spiritual bonds between lovers. This practice is of great importance to Rwandan society, as it is considered a precious secret that women must pass on to their daughters before they marry. Kunyaza is practiced through a series of movements, gestures and various stimulations that stimulate the erogenous zones of both partners, with the ultimate goal of reaching a simultaneous and very intense orgasm. It is a complex technique that requires a serious learning and a great complicity between the partners. The rhythm is essential in this practice, leaving room for a subtle play of accelerations and slowing down, as well as specific positions. But eroticism is not only about the sexual practice itself, it is also a philosophy that advocates the spiritual connection between the two lovers. Kunyaza is considered a tool to improve communication and understanding between partners, to strengthen their complicity, their self-confidence and their self-esteem. Kunyaza is an astonishing practice that testifies to the richness of Rwandan culture and African sensuality in general. Through his film, Olivier Jourdan was able to capture all the beauty and poetry that lies behind this mystical and sensual practice.
The perception of love. Love is a complex concept, which can vary according to individuals and their emotional state. It can be questioned according to our own state of mind. Indeed, our perception of love can be altered by our subconscious judgments, our fears, our expectations, and our level of contentment. When we love, we give love through us, that is, we let our own loving energy flow through our actions and behavior towards the other person. However, our subconscious judgments can alter this loving energy. If we have negative beliefs about the other person, we may project those beliefs onto them and not give them the unconditional love they deserve. In addition, our level of contentment can also affect our perception of love. If we are unhappy in our own lives, we may project our fears and insecurities onto our partner and not be able to see them as they really are. In short, our perception of love can be altered by our own beliefs and emotional states. It is important to be aware of these influences and to work on ourselves in order to be able to love the other person as he or she is, without judgment or condition. True love is unconditional and should not be altered by personal fears and expectations.
Perfection is not necessary to find love. I emphasize the idea that expecting perfection in oneself or in an ideal partner only leads to an illusion, because nobody is truly perfect. It is therefore useless to waste time looking for this perfection, because it does not exist. Human nature is diverse and imperfect, and this is precisely what makes it unique. However, it is possible to find love despite imperfections. It simply requires accepting the flaws in oneself and others and being open to difference. Because, in the end, it is the chemistry between two people that counts more than their individual perfection. Thus, I suggest that true beauty lies in accepting one's imperfect reality, and that this is a privilege for those who can see it. In short, letting go of the expectation of perfection can ultimately lead to the discovery of a unique and authentic love. The personality played. Our personality is often considered a fundamental trait of our being, yet it can be influenced by the gaze of others. We often become actors, playing a role determined by our environment and the people around us. Sometimes, the character we play becomes so strong that it ends up sticking to us and altering our true nature. This phenomenon has an impact on our interpersonal relationships and modifies the perception that others have of us. We adapt to please others and gain their approval, but this can lead to a loss of our authenticity. Indeed, when we play for too long a role that does not suit us, we end up losing our identity and lose sight of what makes our true nature. The very principle of respect can be affected by this played personality. We can be respected for our apparent personality, but when it is out of step with our true nature, it is a superficial respect rather than a sincere one. It is therefore important to return to the core of our being, to rediscover our true personality and to reclaim our identity. It is not a question of completely rejecting the image that we send to others, but rather of nuancing it, of bringing it in line with our deepest nature. It is by accepting who we are that we can move forward in an authentic way and obtain sincere respect from others.
Lack and its associated emotions. Lack is a feeling that can arouse a multitude of emotions, ranging from sadness to anger, anxiety, jealousy, or frustration. It acts on our being in the same way as a blanket taken away from a baby, awakening primary needs in us. When we feel lack, it is often the manifestation of an unmet need. This need can be material, emotional, or even spiritual. It can be linked to a person, an object, a situation, or a past experience. This absence generates a feeling of emptiness that can be difficult to bear. The most common emotion associated with lack is sadness. It occurs when we are affected by the loss or absence of something or someone. It can also be accompanied by tears and feelings of helplessness. Anxiety is another emotion often associated with lack. It comes from the fear of not being able to fill the void, of not finding a solution to our unmet need. This fear can also be related to the feeling of vulnerability that we experience when faced with lack. Jealousy is also an emotion that often stems from lack. When the missing person or object is desired by someone else, this can lead to jealousy, a fear of losing our rightful place. Lack can also lead to anger or frustration, if we feel that our needs are not being met or if we are not getting what we want. In short, Lack is a complex emotion that can generate a multitude of emotions in us, depending on our perception and experience. It invites us to listen to our needs, to identify our expectations, and to find solutions to satisfy them.
Learning to Love, a podcast meditation. In this podcast, we address the fundamental issue of learning to love. Love is an ongoing process that requires patience, understanding, and acceptance of not only ourselves but also the other. Knowing how to love means accepting the freedom of the other while remaining responsible for one's own choices and actions. It also implies understanding that indifference can sometimes arise in the unknown, but that it is important to open up to the other in order to better understand them. But above all, love requires finding inner peace, getting to know oneself, and accepting oneself as one is. It is a process that can take time but is essential to live healthy and fulfilling relationships. This podcast offers a meditation on learning to love to help listeners connect with themselves and develop their own capacity to love and be loved.
Learn to love yourself to better develop yourself. The text addresses an important subject, self-love. This love goes through the acceptance of our weaknesses and our negative emotions. But how can we achieve this? The proposed exercise consists in learning to love our defects by recognizing and accepting them. By doing this, we develop a greater self-esteem and become more confident. I also emphasize that self-love is essential to thrive in life. It is not an unhealthy selfishness, but a positive attitude towards ourselves that allows us to better understand ourselves and others. By integrating self-love, we become happier, more serene, and we can better face the challenges of life. It also contributes to making our love for others deeper and more authentic. In short, self-love is an important process in our personal development and in our relationship with others. It may seem difficult to achieve, but with practice, we can all get there.
Learning about emotions, a quest to understand oneself and the other. The field of emotions and their learning is still considered a taboo subject in our society. However, understanding one's own emotions and those of others is an essential quest for a fulfilled life. Man is above all an emotional being, and emotions play a crucial role in his social life. So, can we learn about emotions? It has been proven that memory plays a role in understanding and managing our emotions. We all have emotional memories related to significant events in our lives. These experiences can influence our perception of emotions, our ability to express them, and even our resilience in difficult situations. But how can we learn to better understand our emotions and those of others? Can we teach empathy, respect, and understanding of others? Some schools offer emotional education programs for children to better understand their feelings and those of others. This can include creative activities, group discussions, and relaxation exercises. It is possible to develop a philosophy of life based on empathy and respect for others. This philosophy consists in considering that each individual has his or her own story, and that understanding his or her emotions requires true attentive listening. This approach may be utopian for some, but it is essential for the construction of a more benevolent and respectful society. In conclusion, learning about emotions is a quest for understanding oneself and others. It requires active listening, benevolent communication, and open-mindedness. Emotions are a subject to be explored without taboos, as their understanding can lead to a more fulfilling life and healthier relationships. Learning empathy through stories. I stress the importance of continuous learning through stories. It suggests that each story opens a new door to an unfamiliar world, offering us the opportunity to discover perspectives that differ from our own. By getting caught up in a story, we are able to understand the issues and emotions of the people involved. By learning new stories, we become more apt to find people who share our pace. We are encouraged to look for similarities rather than judging differences. This allows us to practice empathy for others, to understand their challenges and recognize their successes. In short, learning through history opens us to the possibility of better understanding the world around us, deepening our relationships with others, and developing our sensitivity to societal challenges.
Let love come to us. The desire to be loved is understandable, but it should not push us to overdo it in our seduction game. This can often make us look like someone we really are not. And if we forget that love is self-giving, we can be led to do things that don't suit us. In reality, true love is not obtained through actions and calculation, it manifests itself spontaneously and naturally when we are authentic. This is why it is essential to be yourself and to accept the other person as he or she is, rather than trying to change him or her or to conform to his or her expectations. And when you see the world through the eyes of love, everything that seemed bland and uninteresting takes on a whole new dimension. We begin to recognize that love is all around us, and that it is often just a matter of reaching out and grabbing it. In short, let's learn to let love come to us naturally, rather than looking for it tirelessly through useless efforts. For it is often when we least expect it that it surprises and dazzles us.
Let yourself be guided by the love in you. In this exchange, the freedom and simplicity of love are discussed. The deepest choices of each person are motivated by the source of their desire. It is important to let yourself be guided on this path to recognize the love within. Freedom comes from this recognition of love within oneself. It allows us to free ourselves from the fears and limits that hinder us in our love life. It is by being free that we can open ourselves to the other and embrace his or her simplicity, without artifice or lies. The simplicity of loving is also nourished by the recognition of love in oneself. It consists in loving without pretension or calculation. By loving oneself first, one learns to love the other as he or she is, without trying to change or dominate him/her. It is therefore essential to let oneself be guided by the love within oneself in order to find one's freedom and simplicity of love. This path is not always easy, it requires a real reflection and work on oneself. But it is by reconnecting to our true source of love that we can give and receive authentic and deep love.
Let's explore the subtle and deep forms of love. Love can come in many forms, and it is often difficult to recognize when it is subtle. That's why it's important to be in a state of inner calm, and take the time to explore the different manifestations of love. The practice of meditation and visualization are techniques that will help you find the common ground between each organ, each cell, and each emotion. This will allow you to connect to your own source of love, strengthen it, and spread it around you. In exploring love, do not confuse superficial emotions with love. Emotions are ephemeral and unstable, whereas love is unconditional, inexhaustible, and deep. Love does not depend on external circumstances or the behavior of others, but is an inexhaustible source of peace, compassion, and inner well-being. Finally, love is not limited to the relationship with others, but is an experience that can be lived towards oneself, nature, the universe, or any other form of life. It is a unifying force that can truly transform your existence. It is therefore important to be open and receptive to all forms of love, to explore and experience them to enrich your life and your inner being. Life roles. There are 5 different roles we can play in our lives: conqueror, ruler, parent, guardian, and guide. The conqueror refers to our desire for conquest and rebellion. It is the movement of spring, the manifestation of our mental fantasies, ambitions, and desire for change. The ruler, on the other hand, represents maturity and wisdom gained through life experience. He is compared to the summer sun, always warm on the outside but sometimes cold on the inside. The ruler knows how to enjoy life to the fullest while keeping a certain distance from situations. The parent, the third role, is the one who nourishes our need for tenderness and guides us through the most difficult moments. He takes care of our needs, our expectations, and our well-being. The guardian embodies the need for autonomy, security, stability, and structure. He watches over us, protects us, and offers us a clear and organized environment to evolve. Finally, the guide is the spiritual call that pushes us to rise, to go beyond our limits, and to reach our dreams. He is the common mission, the fusional fluidity that allows us to work together to achieve a common goal. In short, each of these roles is essential for a fulfilled and balanced life. Depending on how far along we are in life and what our needs are, we may aspire to play a different role at different times in our lives. Living with an open heart for a better humanity. This text invites us to live with an open heart in order to progress and improve as human beings. Awakening one's consciousness serves as a basis for the intellect to have a collective vision. By focusing on the qualities of others, it is possible to serve one's neighbor, and thus contribute to a better humanity. The open heart refers to an emotional and spiritual state where one is free to feel, to open up to others and to listen to one's deepest needs. By living with an open heart, one also develops a greater compassion and benevolence towards others. Awareness is a personal development process that consists of becoming aware of one's beliefs, emotions and behaviors in order to better understand one's inner workings. By having a clearer vision of oneself, one can better apprehend the external world and act in a more positive and altruistic way. By focusing our attention on the qualities of others, we begin a process that allows us to place ourselves in a state of empathy and benevolence towards others. Instead of judging people on their faults, we learn to look beyond their limitations to discover their qualities and strengths. This practice allows one to cultivate a more harmonious relationship with others and to put oneself at the service of humanity. In short, living with an open heart is a way to live more at peace with oneself and with others. By awakening our consciousness and focusing on the qualities of others, we can contribute to a better humanity and participate in building a more just and harmonious world.
Living with bipolar, an ongoing challenge. I'm talking about the fact that we all have times when we feel well or not so well. However, some people experience extreme bipolarity that is characterized by episodes of depression and mania. The testimony shared in I highlights the difficulty of living with two different characters, which can be impenetrable to those close to the person with the disorder. This can lead to relationship difficulties and mutual misunderstanding. Unfortunately, there is currently no viable psychological solution to stabilize bipolar disorder. Medication and psychotherapy can bring some relief, but it is difficult to find a permanent solution. With this in mind, I encourage people with bipolar, and those around them, not to be heroes, but rather to be kind and loving to themselves. Learning to deal with the ups and downs is an ongoing challenge, requiring patience, acceptance and a good deal of empathy for self and others. Loneliness, a vicious circle, how the search for recognition can drive us away from ourselves. Loneliness is a phenomenon present in different countries of the world, affecting a significant percentage of the adult population. However, this loneliness is not only the state of celibacy, it can also manifest itself in romantic or friendly relationships where we do not feel understood or connected with the other. Loneliness can have emotional repercussions, especially in terms of the quest for recognition. Indeed, it can be tempting to seek to be valued by the outside world, through the eyes of others, rather than evaluating oneself by listening to one's own needs and aspirations. This dependence on external recognition can then reinforce a feeling of loneliness, because it implies giving more importance to the judgment of others than to one's own convictions. This vicious circle can thus take hold. Loneliness feeds the need for recognition, which in turn feeds loneliness. To get out of this circle, it is important to develop a harmonious relationship with oneself, to reconnect to one's values, aspirations and identity, without letting oneself be influenced by the outside world. This can be done through activities that give us pleasure and allow us to discover ourselves, as well as through a benevolent communication with ourselves. It is also important to remember that loneliness does not define our value as human beings, and that it is possible to make authentic connections with others by taking the time to seek out people who share our interests and values. In short, loneliness should not be seen as an inevitability, but rather as an opportunity to discover new aspects of ourselves and to build stronger, more fulfilling relationships.
Loneliness, an opportunity to strengthen our social ties. Feeling lonely can be difficult, but it can also encourage us to seek out the company of others and build stronger social bonds. This is not the same as feeling lonely, where you may feel sad or empty. There are benefits to living alone, such as enjoying the joys of being single or having more time to yourself. However, it is important to find a balance between being alone and being in the company of others. At this time, when we are in a supportive but lonely mode due to the pandemic, it is crucial to maintain our social connections through video calls, regular messages or virtual meetings. Loneliness can be an opportunity to connect with our loved ones and friends, sharing our experiences and helping each other through this difficult time. Ultimately, loneliness is not something to fear, but rather an opportunity to connect more with others and build stronger relationships. It is important to take care of ourselves and maintain contact with others to strengthen our social bonds.
Love, a blessing that liberates from negative imagination. Love is a force that connects beings and brings joy to life. By comparing materialistic and spiritual attitudes, he emphasizes the benefits of giving and freeing oneself rather than buying, owning and controlling everything. Negative emotions are often created by the imagination, while love is a blessing that frees us from this toxic imagination. Love is therefore presented as a conscious choice to connect with others, to give of ourselves and to be free. This vision of love is in line with the values of inner ecology, which invites us to let go, to open ourselves to others and to nature in order to better realize ourselves as human beings. By cultivating love, we can overcome our fears, our doubts and our imaginary limits to access a richer and more serene life, where the blessing of love is always present.
Love, a story in permanent construction. I'm talking about the theme of love, the one that is present in our daily lives and that pushes us to look for our Prince Charming or Princess Charming, in the hope of a happy and bright future. However, there is an important aspect that we must take into account, our own internal biological functioning. Indeed, to live a stable and fulfilling love story, it is necessary to become aware of our own inner workings. This means becoming aware of our own fears, our doubts, our dreams, our desires. It is about understanding how our body and mind work in relation to the other. Love is a story in constant construction. It is not only about finding the right partner, but also about building a strong and solid relationship with this person. This requires patience, communication, understanding, and tolerance. In short, love is a path that must be walked with awareness and determination. You have to be ready to invest yourself fully in this adventure, to be able to question yourself and to adapt to the hazards of life, in order to finally write together the most beautiful love story there is.
Love, according to Albert Einstein, the force that gives meaning to life. The famous physicist and philosopher Albert Einstein spoke several times about love in his life. For him, this strong emotion is much more than a simple affection between two people. According to Einstein, love is a force that gives meaning to human existence. For Einstein, love is a fundamental energy of the universe, like gravity or electricity. When this force is set in motion, it can transform everything and solve many problems. For Einstein, love is the answer to all of life's difficulties, whether personal or social. According to him, love can give meaning to life, because it allows us to go beyond ourselves and think of others. This way of loving is altruistic, because it does not aim to satisfy one's own needs, but to help others live better. Love is therefore a noble and unselfish feeling that must be cultivated and strengthened. Moreover, according to Albert Einstein, love can change our view of the world. By loving others, we learn to understand them better and thus foster tolerance and mutual understanding. Love helps to break down barriers that may exist between cultures and nations. For Einstein, love is a unifying force that can lead to a peaceful and respectful world. Thus, for Albert Einstein, love is more than just a human emotion. It is a positive force that can transform the world and give meaning to life. Love must therefore be cultivated and encouraged, in order to foster individual fulfillment and a more harmonious society.
Love, according to Rupert Spira, a fusion of the illusion of separation to reach reality. In this excerpt, Rupert Spira approaches love from a different perspective. Contrary to the popular idea that love is a feeling, he explains that love is rather a state of fusion where the illusory separation is dissolved. This fusion leads to an experience of reality. Indeed, according to Rupert Spira, the perception of separation is an illusion created by our ego. We believe that we are separate individuals, when in reality we are all interconnected. When we love, we experience a dissolution of this illusion of separation. We are merging with the object we love, whether it is a person, an animal or nature. This merging allows us to reach a higher state of consciousness, a consciousness that is not limited by the ego. This process of merging is not limited to romantic love, although that is often where the most obvious example is found. It can also occur in our relationship with other living beings in nature. Ultimately, Rupert Spira invites us to reconsider our understanding of love. It is not just a fleeting feeling, but rather a path to reality that helps us dissolve the ego and recognize our oneness with other living beings. Love according to Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, an appropriation of the other as a free being. This text explores the vision of love of the famous French philosophers Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. They see love as an intense desire to possess the other as a free being. Loving, for them, implies the creation of a role in which each person seeks to be loved in return. This role is reflected in behavior by the appearance of feelings for each other. Sartre and Beauvoir also suggest that the scarcity of love is related to our freedom to love. We have the freedom to choose to whom we give our love, and this freedom is often associated with a certain rarity of love. In other words, according to Sartre and Beauvoir, love is more than just an emotion or a feeling. It is an act of appropriating the other as a free being, and it also involves the recognition of our own freedom. This vision of love is in line with their existentialist philosophy, which emphasizes individual freedom and the responsibility of each individual in creating his or her own life.
Love and selfishness, exploring a complex concept. The concept of love is often used to describe a variety of feelings and actions, ranging from affection to passion. But what is love, really? According to the previous text, love is manifested in the way you behave towards others in a loving way, accepting and helping others. When talking about love, it is difficult to avoid talking about selfishness. How do you overcome selfishness? I would say that selfishness is always present and varies in intensity. However, love can temper selfishness, allowing an individual to give without expecting anything in return. However, feeling love is not always clear or simple. The text raises the idea that love is a shifting feeling that cannot be easily defined or explained. Perhaps this is due to the complexity of human behavior, as well as the variety of experiences that can trigger different feelings of love and reactions. Ultimately, love is a complex and multifaceted concept that can be difficult to master and understand. However, by focusing on loving actions and acceptance of others, as well as moderating selfishness, one can have a chance to foster the growth of this love in oneself and others.
Love and emotional maturity according to Rousseau. In this text, we are introduced to Rousseau's thought through the notion of self-love, considered as the opposite of self-love. For Rousseau, self-love is the ability to respect, appreciate and care for one's own well-being, whereas self-love is the tendency to compare oneself to others, to seek recognition and to feel jealousy. The author goes on to talk about love wounds, stating that they have the ability to challenge us. Indeed, through these painful experiences, we are invited to reflect on ourselves, to understand our true needs and desires, to develop more empathy and to be more attentive to others. Cosmos thus offers a beautiful analysis of emotional maturity, which involves not only the ability to manage one's emotions, but also to know oneself, to have a realistic vision of oneself and others, and to develop a moral conscience. In the end, self-love is an indispensable prerequisite for loving others and building a more harmonious world.
Love and food, a recipe for happiness. When we are in love, the moments we share together take on a special dimension. Meals are one of them, and they can become an intimate moment of sharing and complicity. The more we love each other, the more we look into each other's eyes. Sitting at the table with your loved one and exchanging glances while eating strengthens the connection between the two people. It's a time to talk about everything, to laugh together and to discover each other from another angle. The meal becomes a simple, yet deeply satisfying pleasure. Food becomes the excuse to create a unique moment, to take the time to savor each bite and to enjoy the moment. Eating together also brings reassurance. Knowing that you share the same tastes, the same culinary preferences, reinforces the intimacy of the relationship. It is an opportunity to discover new flavors and to share memories of travel or childhood. In short, love and food are a recipe for happiness. Shared meals allow to create moments of complicity, to appreciate the presence of the other through the senses, to reinforce intimacy and to savor the present moment.